Hello and welcome to the Media Play News Podcast. I'm your host, Charles Parkman.
And I'm co-host Charlie Sholey.
This episode, we're talking about Netflix's successful gambit to increase subscriptions, Avatar 2 hitting home media, Apple's entry into the VR market, and I'm sure a number of tangents.
Yes, those are required.
But before all that, what have we watched since last time?
Well, like I was saying in the last episode, I saw the Mario movie. And also, as a fun exercise, I got it running on my 3DS, which I was demoing for you while you were, writing up the last of the copy for this. An objectively terrible way to watch the movie, but it's just a fun thing to have.
It is pure novelty.
Yeah. But as for the movie itself, I don't really understand all the hate for it, specifically about, it didn't have much of a story. It did have a story. It was a very simple story.
It's an incredibly simple story.
A kid-appropriate story for a kid's movie, which it was. But that being said, it was still a lot of fun. So happy it made, $1 billion or however much it was. And also, now that the show Succession has ended, I've started watching that. Gotten through one season. I still don't get it. It's, the acting is very good. It's just not my kind of show because all the people are objectively awful human beings.
But not in a fun way, like Always Sunny.
Yeah. So, I'm only 1/4 of the way through it. And everyone, when there was the big, shocking capital T twist in season 4, it's like, this is the greatest episode of TV I've ever seen. Just a few weeks after seeing episode 3 of The Last of Us, the greatest episode of TV I've ever seen. I'm sure it'll be great. Now that I have time to watch things again, I'll be blasting through that. Another thing that I just stumbled across, this is topical, seeing as how Ted Kaczynski's just committed suicide at the age of 81.
Rest in piss, Kaczynski.
I found a show called Manhunt Unabomber. It's not a documentary about the Unabomber's crimes, but like a docudrama kind of thing. It's got Sam Worthington in it as a profiler who, from what I'm gauging from the show, I've only seen the pilot of it. He was kind of like the main profiler in charge of, or responsible for helping to successfully catch him. I don't know if it's a real person, unlike the Unabomber.
I forget the guy's name, but there was basically a super cop who kind of put together this profile.
Yeah.
There was the profiler who made an insanely accurate profile, and then there was another federal agent who was taking it very seriously and ended up helping.
Yeah, I'm familiar with a couple of the very high level details of the case, but I don't actually know any of the nitty gritty intricacies of it. So of course I'm going to watch a dramatized retelling of the story. And actually the show itself, I don't know that much about its production either. I don't know exactly when it was made.
Manhunt does they'll cover a different high profile case I don't know if they do it in seasons or if it's just little mini series and they're all under the umbrella of Manhunt.
Got it. From what I saw, there were only 2 seasons of it. That may be incorrect. There could be more. I just know that it was a lot more high quality than I expected it to be. So I'm looking forward to watching that. But what I'm looking forward to most is the new season of Black Mirror comes out this week. So I've always been a big fan of the show creator stuff, Charlie Brooker, Black Mirror in particular. When they made the transition over to Netflix, it definitely got a little less, I don't want to say the quality dipped, but you could feel there was a difference, kind of just it was a different fingerprint to the show now.
And sometimes having less restraint is not as good like in terms of like artistic production, a lot of times I feel like a lot of people do their best work within limits because you know kind of what you can push up against, and you do as much as you can within that. I feel like maybe having a Netflix budget during a time where Netflix was like, hey, we have to become our own thing now that everyone's taking their rights back and throwing as much money as they could at different promising things. It might might hurt a little bit to suddenly have way fewer restrictions as opposed to working for a traditional media network.
Yeah. If I had to throw a 5-second analysis at it, it would kind of be the BBC era of Black Mirror is more about like ideas and stuff because their budget was a lot more constrained. And now they can afford to flex a little bit, like having that black and white episode with the killer robot Boston Dynamics dog with a machine gun for a head chasing after the characters the whole time. But I can't wait for this to come out. I'm definitely going to watch it all before like the weekend. I don't understand the people who watch one episode and they say, oh, I had to kind of like turn my TV off for a second to think about the effects of technology on daily life. And as soon as I watch the horrifying twist at the end of each episode, I'm like, wow, that was great. Let me see another one.
Man, that was messed up, right? Cool. So moving on.
Yeah. So lots more free time now. Cause as Charles was present for too, I got married in the last month.
Yeah. Congrats to Mr. and Mrs. Sholey.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I need help drinking all the leftover alcohol that I got for the event.
And I'm here to do my part, folks.
Yeah. So we've got extra inspiration for this week. But before we get into that, what have you been watching over the last month, Charles?
I have been kind of jumping around. A friend of the show lent me the Blu-rays for most of the Fast saga. So I have up to this point rewatched the original 3 films. I haven't made the jump to the revival yet. And honestly, the first 2 Fast and Furiouses are not bad movies.
Really?
They're not great movies.
I think 2 is pretty bad, but 1 is unironically good.
1 is good. 1 is like legitimately good. There's something kind of endearing about the fact that neither Paul Walker or Vin Diesel are particularly good actors. Like you really I don't know, you really buy their, because it feels like they're just being guys and it works. The second one is definitely not as good as the first one. And I think a lot of it is there's some it's a very simple story. Like it's incredibly simple that then it could be 45 minutes, but it is 90. But I think it's entertaining enough throughout that you kind of just kind of go with it. I think it falls apart on scrutiny, but as a viewing experience, Too Fast, Too Furious is fun. Tokyo Drift's not good. I didn't enjoy Tokyo Drift at all. There's some novelty to the era. Just like those movies came out when I was in middle school. And so,
oh yeah, everybody watching synchronized live video of a race, networked through flip phones that they're all using to record it. Back when technology was so advanced in 2006.
And that movie's set in the future, 2012 or 2013 or something. It's set 5 or 6 years in the future from when it came out. And they still, but obviously there was no full imagination for smartphones. So, of course, they're just using really shiny flip phones because that's what cell phones look like. They're just going to get cooler and shinier.
We strayed too far from the light, Charles. I missed flip phone era.
Hey, look, they put the Razor back out.
Yeah, for $1,500.
That nostalgia baiting. I've seen, just in the last week, I've seen Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse twice. The movie's real good. I expected it to be good, and it was better than I thought it was going to be.
And they set it up for a third one too.
Yeah, it was announced as a 2-part film, but they're cool about it and did it back to back, so we didn't have to wait 9 months for the next one, as opposed to I mean, I guess Infinity War and Endgame were only a year apart. But that's the way to do it. If you're going to announce it as two parts, go ahead and just hit them back to back. I guess Dune is doing that also. It was like 18 months?
Well, yes and no, because they didn't get greenlit for part 2 until after part 1 came out. So they completely made Dune 2 within the space of Dune 1 releasing. Like I'm sure they did some pre-production for it, but
as much as they could afford to.
No expensive stuff whatsoever.
Yeah.
And man, that couple week period where I'm like,
real dicey.
Oh my God, that movie was so good. Please announce the second one.
But yeah, Spider-Verse is real good. I probably won't see it in theaters a third time unless someone asks me to, in which case I will. But I've also been watching the original season of Clone High. For whatever reason, never got around to watching it. It came out while I was in high school. I wasn't really watching a lot of television at the time, but because a revival season came to HBO right before it became Max, I was like, it'll be interesting to watch Clone High, but I should watch the first one, the original, just like to see if I'd be into the concept. And because the reason I started watching it is because it was also created by Lord and Miller, who wrote and directed the first Spider-Verse, the Lego movie. Actually, no, they didn't co-write the first Spider-Verse, but they did co-write the second one. But anyway, they're involved in the two Spider-Verse movies as well as the Lego movies. But they created and directed parts of Clone High. And Clone High is funny. It's like not uproariously so, but it's like the concept is very novel, and the voice acting, like it's good voice actors. A lot of them before they were like famous. None of them are like unknowns. None of the main cast are like unknowns, but none of them were like really big at the time. And I think it all works. There's some stuff that has not aged super great because it's been 20 years, but overall, Clone High is fun. It's also on Max if you want to check it out. It's an enjoyable little 20 minutes. I like the format of it where it's like every episode is like a very special episode of like a teen drama. And so I'm only about halfway through. So I'm looking forward to finishing that as well. And then hitting up the new one, seeing if it resonates the same way. But let's get into our inspiration so we can get on with the show. This week we're doubling it up. We got some Four Roses bourbon.
Responsibly.
We're just having the one for now. We both got a little, just 2 fingers of Four Roses bourbon. Left over from Charlie's wedding.
Yeah, only the good stuff for my parties.
As well as we're each drinking a different Ballast Point brew. Charlie's got the Sculpin, the good old standby. Ballast Point's probably like most consistent, solid. The only one of the only IPAs I like. Good old Sculpin. And then I'm tasting for the first time the Speedboat, their Salt and Lime Blonde Ale, and it's refreshing.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to sample that next, responsibly.
Well, let's get on with the show.
Yeah, we're going to start this week with the latest big move from Netflix. They finally brought the hammer down in North America because they were rolling this out in stages kind of throughout the world to make sure it wouldn't completely break their business model. In an effort to crack down on password sharing, they have now locked that out, and you have to pay extra if you want to be able to have people on your account sign in, not on your same network, just in an effort to grab some of the money that's left on the table from degenerates like, people I know. I'm not naming any names, but, 1 or 2 of the people in this room with us right now sharing Netflix accounts. For all the public's complaints about the service, from canceling shows early to the lack of quality content, just to the plain desire to not want to pay more money in general, It's been nothing more than hot air because according to the data tracking company Antenna, over a 2-day period at the end of May, once this new policy was rolled out, Netflix saw close to 100,000 signups, a 102% increase from the previous 60-day average in terms of signups per day. I'm bringing up a graph right now, which you can't see because this is an audio only podcast, but just imagine kind of a jagged line that's just, going straight. It's pretty flat. And then all of a sudden, whoop.
Yeah, it's a considerable spike.
Yeah, you just see a vertical line straight up for the number of signups Netflix got in that day. That's even more signups than they saw during the early days of COVID lockdowns when everybody was stuck inside and they had nothing to do but sign up for streaming services.
Yeah, and by more, it's almost 20% more than the April 2020. When no one could go anywhere. There's more signups than then. And I think that's really interesting. I honestly, I was kind of expecting it to, if anything, just kind of stay flat, in terms of new signups.
Right. It wouldn't hurt the service in that people would cancel Netflix out of anger, but it wouldn't really affect anything all that much.
But I guess I just underestimated, one, how much people like using Netflix, and two, how the sheer number of people who weren't paying for it before.
Yeah, so I know that their share price got a pretty solid boost from this. And you can expect the same policy to now carry over to other streaming services.
It's going to hit the streaming industry hard in the worst way for consumers. But I'm already paying too much money to streaming services, so it's not really going to affect me at all. Unless I suddenly get an email, it's like, hey, one too many people is using your account.
Yeah, I mean, in the next article, we've got kind of a few reasons why you should cancel certain services over others. So I'll kind of hang on to the details until then. But just in terms of the overall landscape of what's happening, yes, people will pay to either have their own account or to share it for themselves. And I mean, the same thing happened here because, we share an account with our parents. And one day I fire up the smart TV, I hit Netflix and it says, oh, it seems you're trying to log in at another location. I forgot about this.
Yeah, I'm assuming that because I know I was paying for a higher tier of Netflix, but I have not had anyone in my family text me since this policy went into effect. So we'll see what happens. But I guess I really underestimated how many people were that into Netflix. As I mentioned before on the show, I don't really use Netflix. If something I want to watch happens to be there, if I search using TV Time or Just Watch, whichever one my app screen is closest to. I mean, whichever one we had a delightful interview with.
TV Time, owned by Whip Media.
Yeah, when I if I'm looking for something in particular, that's usually where I go first rather than just Google it because it's going to give me a bunch of things. And, TV Time will let you know, is it available to stream or where you can rent it, as opposed to Google, which will just be hey, here's how you pay money for it. Google, you don't even get any of that money. What are you doing? So that's usually the only time I use Netflix. But I do, I guess now more than ever, understand Netflix is still a major point, a big deal for people in the streaming landscape. I think if nothing else, a big part of it is they were first on the scene. There's a lot of name recognition. Netflix was synonymous with streaming for a long time.
Yeah, and I'm still going to die on the hill that the user experience of just navigating through stuff on Netflix is better than every other platform.
It's easily the best user interface. The only thing that I would say that Max specifically has, or I guess Max and Hulu have over Netflix, is that you can separate your watch list by movies or television, which is honestly not a huge deal because like Hulu's probably the next best in terms of like a suitable user interface. Max overall, like HBO Max wasn't great. It hasn't gotten better with more networks added. It's very difficult to navigate that now. But if I go to my list, I can separate it by movies or television. And sometimes it's a little bit easier depending on like what I'm looking for in that moment. Yeah. Congrats to Netflix, I guess, for like that. It was a gamble, and we've talked about it since they announced it a couple months ago.
Oh yeah, Netflix absolutely called the bluff of their consumers.
Yep, and the consumers blinked. All right, moving on to another streamer, Disney Plus. Avatar 2 is debuted on the service with the physical release set to drop June 20th.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch it for the first time. Totally forgot what happened in it in the 2 times I've seen it when it was in theaters.
I very nearly watched it this past week just because I was like, I don't know if I have the patience for 3 hours that I know I'm not going to remember. If I'm going to do that, I'm just going to drink a whole bunch.
Wait, have you not seen it at all yet?
I saw it twice.
Okay.
I saw it once in standard, and I saw it in 3D because my partner doesn't like to see 3D movies. So while she was gone, I went and saw it in 3D, and I was like, "Yeah, man, this is great. This is an incredible experience."
You came out of the theater, and you're like, "What a great ride!
Yeah.
Can't wait to go on that again."
Yeah, this is it's straight up. Seeing in 3D is like, what if Star Tours were 3 hours, but like in a way that's fun? Not that Star Tours isn't fun, but like 5 minutes is plenty. We'll have to be content with the latest movie from the Avatar franchise for a while, because Disney also announced the majority of scheduled movies in its mainline franchises, including Marvel and Avatar, have all been delayed, partly due to the ongoing writer strike. In an article from Variety, Avatar 3 is now delayed until December 2025, and new also delayed release dates for Avatars 4 and 5. All right, so Avatar 4, December 2029.
It gets worse.
That's a made-up year. Avatar 5, December 2031.
Yes, there will be an actual date on an actual calendar that crosses December 2031, and Avatar 5 will conclude the franchise
8
then.
years from now. 8 years from now. That's so much time. Like, will anybody care?
Okay, I mean, even a realistic question, they've got Avatar 2 on streaming now on Disney Plus. Will Disney Plus even exist in 2031?
Right.
Hard to say. For reference, Netflix has been streaming since 2007. So that's a 16-year time period. In my head, I was thinking it would be like, okay, well, Avatar 5, 8 years away. Netflix, they've probably been streaming for about 8 years. So is Disney Plus really going to be around? Okay, well, Netflix has been around longer than
for
I
twice
thought.
that.
But even so, with all the shakeups and stuff, like
right.
with Discovery and Warner Brothers merging and stuff like that, it's kind of uncertain what the landscape is going to be like that far away.
Yeah. And even like, considering how quickly all of that shifted, like, even just using Disney as an example, when the Disney Channel launched in, I think, 1985, 86, somewhere in the mid 80s, Disney Channel launched. It was a premium channel like HBO. It wasn't until like 92 or so that they decided to like, we're going to be a basic cable network. And then they were late to streaming, like, as a thing, probably because they had to get a lot of their properties back in order to do it. But yeah, the idea of like 8 years from now, having even a similar streaming setup to what we have now, considering 4 years ago, there were still only like 3 options. So, and I thought they shot I thought like Avatar 2 and 3 were, a back-to-back joint because they have kids, so they have to.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that Avatar 3 got affected at all because they shot all of it, or just about all of it, as far as I know.
I was expecting 2024. Like, I wasn't expecting it to come out this year, but, relatively soon.
Yeah, it could be something having to do with the other release dates for their Marvel movies and other properties getting delayed.
Trying to not compete with themselves.
Yeah, I haven't looked up the dates for anything, but if you have with something as tightly knit as the Marvel series is, it's like if one thing gets delayed, if you want to maintain like the sequence of events throughout all the movies, then everything has to get pushed back too. Because you would know this better, but I know that the release dates for a bunch of previous TV shows and Marvel movies kind of got jumbled around a bit. So certain things came out before they should have relative to other ones, which kind of led to like some of the stories ending up like convoluted.
Yeah, they had to rewrite a lot of Phase 4 because COVID delayed productions and certain things were at different stages, and that was a whole thing. And it looks like, with the writing strike, that's Marvel's an interesting place because, everything Disney, because Disney just had that whole shakeup with their CEO and readjusting kind of what their release schedule is. Bob Iger, when he came back, was like, we're not doing 6 releases a year, like across 3 franchises. That's crazy.
Yeah, the greatest move by the CEO. So I don't have to drown in Marvel advertising every day of my life.
Like, we're doing 2 shows, 2 movies for Marvel. Tops. That's as much as we're doing in a single year. We got to pump the brakes. We're going to oversaturate the market. Pixar, like the original Disney productions, I don't know what's going on there. Those movies just seem to come out. Maybe because I'm not as plugged into family features anymore. But they've got, this movie Elemental. It's coming out this summer.
I'm not plugged in either because I thought that already came out.
It's crazy because they've only had the one trailer, and apparently it comes out like this month. And I think it's one of those where they did enough production on it where they were like, I don't know if we believe this in this one, but we got to put it out. Very similar to The Good Dinosaur.
The what?
So it's the one Pixar movie that nobody knows about because it was a huge flop because it's crazy boring. And I think it was one of those things where like they invested a lot of money in it. And we're like, well, we can't not release it at this point. So they just went ahead and finished it. Elemental seems very similar because there's no info about it at all. It's not even a good trailer. Whatever. That's a different discussion. We're talking about this trailer right now. But staying on Disney as a follow-up, like right after our last episode in the middle of May, Disney dropped several shows completely. Like these shows are not available anymore. Disney Plus originals, things made for Disney Plus.
Yes, they've been memory holes.
I don't know what you're talking about. Willow? What?
Yeah, so that's what I was hinting at when I was talking about Netflix, making their move on cutting down password sharing to make sure that they're still turning a profit from being on the site. But the downside of people subscribing to these platforms is they log in and they expect to find something that they want to see, like something specific, but it's not getting recommended. So with instances like this, like I know Max did the same thing with some of their shows, and now Disney axing like 30 properties that they didn't have physical releases as far as I know.
Those shows are just gone.
They got deleted. So this is an article I pulled from The Verge. Quote, Disney's decision to purge content follows similar cost-cutting moves by HBO Max and Showtime to avoid paying out for underperforming library titles. This is an interesting idea because it does tie in with one of the reasons writers are striking in the first place, which is the fact that the economic model for residuals is very different from cable TV.
Yeah.
And they Disney has these underperforming shows that they don't want to pay out for. I'm just kind of like assuming here, but number of 1,000 plays per show, they have to pay out to like the writers and creators and all the stuff for that show. But if they're underperforming, why would that be like a significant cost that Disney would have to bear anyway?
Right, you produced the show already. Like it's already out there. So things like Willow and Why the Last Man are like interesting because like, and Why the Last Man was on Hulu. I think you can watch it on Disney Plus now if you have like, hey, well, I'm an adult or whatever their distinction is that allows you to see Deadpool 2 on Disney Plus. It's interesting like how that stuff is approached because like, yeah, what does it cost? It's one thing to like cancel the show, but like, what is it?
Once it's made, it just kind of sits there
right. And
on your server. You're paying for storage effectively.
Right. And if it's underperforming, if it's not getting the views that you wanted, then you're not having to pay out much anyway. Yeah.
So unless there's some sort of contract or deal they're trying to get out of where there's like a minimum payout they have to pay.
Yeah.
They're not turning any kind of profit in terms of people aren't paying for new subscriptions or renewing their subscriptions to see these specifically. Yeah. Like I can kind of see that. But then on the flip side, you have shows like, for instance, one that I really like that's on Hulu called Devs. I forget if I've mentioned it on this show before or not. I don't see anybody talk about this at all. But that show is incredible and exists only on streaming. So if that were to suddenly vanish, which I could totally see happening simply because it's not like a cultural scale level TV show, how am I supposed to consume? I mean, I know how to get it if I really want to, but it's not, the moral way. I want to pay to get the stuff that I want.
And statistically, every time it's been like polled or surveyed, if something is available legitimately without too many hoops to jump through, most people will access it that way because it's less heat on you for doing it. Like I'm scrolling through the list of things that have like been taken off, and granted, a bunch of the stuff on Disney, a bunch of stuff that Disney Plus pulled, I haven't heard of. But the things that are on here that I have heard of, like The World According to Jeff Goldblum, that Nat Geo series that they did, that feels crazy. Like that they would, as much as there was behind that they would pull that. Like there's none of the Marvel properties proper are there, but a lot of their behind the scenes and like documentary style stuff got pulled. A number of Disney Plus original movies that they that they promoted super heavy going in.
Yeah, that's just like the biggest question mark for me because it's not physical stuff that they have to maintain stocks of and have to keep, printing new DVDs just to have on hand. And it's taking up storage space. If you're storing this thing, it means you don't have room to store something that might be more popular.
Yeah. Or like the production costs isn't, the amount of people buying the physical copy isn't justifying the manufacturing cost.
Yeah, like but this, it's like a request to stream something is, I imagine, going to cost exactly the same to request anything else. So I'm just, I have no idea why they would choose to, don't make more seasons of a show. I get that. That's fine. But why just remove it entirely?
Yeah, I have to assume it was like you said, maybe there's a minimum payout, and in a weird vindictive way, they're like, well, we're not getting more money from this, so you got your pay, like you got paid what we have to pay you, and now it's just gone.
Yeah, from all I know, one of the things that turns out from this writer's strike is requiring that a certain show that a writer is on must be available on streaming. Like whoever owns the rights for it, they are required to host it for 10 years or however long.
Like, just something like it's weird. I don't know I feel like we may have talked about it before, how when shows go to streaming, like we definitely talked about like The Last of Us getting a Blu-ray release and stuff like that does get a physical release is very rare for streaming, for different things that go directly to streaming. And it's going to be, I think like the market's going to be really interesting going forward, like knowing that there's a chance to like at any time a show that you're maybe even in the middle of watching, maybe you're one of the few people who's like, I didn't finish Willow. I hope my partner did because she was very into it, but Willow wasn't for me, but I don't think it should not be available at all. And like Why the Last Man was on my list of shows to watch once I, had the time, and now I just can't. It's just like not, I can figure it out, but
wink.
I can't go to Hulu and pull it up. It's just not, it's not even like Hulu will do a thing, which is annoying, where if you add something to your list and then it's taken off of Hulu, it'll still be on your list. You just can't watch it. And I was like, well, that's not helpful to me. Like that's not really beneficial in a way that matters. Just that I remembered that I want to watch it. Like you're not doing anything for me.
Yeah, I did just think of something. It probably doesn't apply here, but one legitimate reason to take something off of streaming is like the legalities of hosting something, in that it's hard to figure out the kind of ownership of a given property. So to give a specific example, I know that the Kevin Smith movie Dogma has gone through kind of like legal hell over the last 10 plus years, just by virtue of it's hard to kind of lock down distribution rights for it. Yeah. And as a consequence, I found that my special edition DVD copy of Dogma has massively appreciated in value because they simply don't make it anymore.
Yeah, that's definitely, like it's not a new problem. It is I guess it's more like a new element to an existing problem.
It's a remix of that problem.
Yeah, because like, I've thought about that. Like I'm a comic, like I was a comic book collector. I still collect some stuff, but I don't have the space to collect like I want to. We just had another friend of the show out, and while we were out, we were talking about their comic book collection, and it's its own whole thing. But comics have a similar issue where the companies that publish things do have to account, because it's a physical product, or it has been for 90 years and now has a digital component, but almost anything you can buy digitally also has a physical release. And so but by its nature, it's pieces of paper, it's 30 pieces of paper stapled together. It's like by its nature, it disappears. Like they're gonna fall apart. And the stories might not be available in like a collected edition. So like I'm at a point now with the amount of space that I have and the amount of money I have to spend on comics that I'll wait for a book to finish and I'll buy a trade paperback that's like a full collected thing. I can't do that with everything that came out when I was growing up, because they didn't, for whatever reason, like it didn't sell well enough. Like there's one thing in particular that I'm looking for, and this happens with shows as well, that didn't perform super well. And so it got canceled before it was finished. But because it got canceled before it was finished, there's no collected edition of it because it's not done. Why would you collect an incomplete thing?
Well, they did sell a 5 of 7 series of the Game of Thrones books that I bought before I went to grad school. And you know how many more books they've released since then?
None.
This many. You know, when George R. R. Martin released his 5th Game of Thrones book, right before season 1 of Game of Thrones came out.
Well, he was busy, obviously. Yeah, there's stuff going on. But yeah, like I said, it's existing problem across media in general. We could have a whole other discussion about video game archiving, like in any form of media, physical media in particular. There's a point where it's just like, you might not be able to get this anymore. And it seemed for a while that we weren't going to have that problem with digital media. That was almost like an inherent part of it, was that once something is streaming, once it exists on the internet, it can be accessed. But the same approach to physical media of, well, what does it cost to continue to have this, and how can we limit access in a way that makes money, is still present. Like, that mindset is still present, even if the actual problem doesn't apply in the same way because it only exists digitally. There is a storage element to it, but it's not nearly on the same level of, we have to physically manufacture a bunch of discs and packaging and then physically ship those things to different markets. So I know it's like we talked about earlier, it is part of the current writers and maybe also directors and acting strike going on right now. There is a big part of that is how streaming is being treated in terms of how that revenue makes its way to the people doing the actual creating. So it'll be an interesting couple months to see how this shakes out. We're already over a month into this strike.
Yeah, the last one, if memory serves, went for 100 days. So we got another couple podcast episodes until this strike finishes, if it goes for the same amount of time.
Yeah.
You don't own the stuff that you subscribe to. Buy physical if you actually want access to it whenever you want. Because nobody's watching Y: The Last Man. That's why they canceled it. Whatever. Until they cancel something that you really like, then it starts to be a problem. Yeah,
we've been on that tip for a while on this show. If you can get it physically, get it while you can get it, because you never know when a thing is going to go. And in a lot of these cases, you might not even have the option. So if there's something you like and it is available physically, get it while you can before it's, either not available at all, or it is available, but only on a secondary market and for 200% plus of what it would have cost otherwise. There are a couple of shows that I have saved in my Amazon wish list that are through third-party sellers that are considerably more than they would have been if I'd bought them initially. But I was a rube, just like you, listener, who was like, it'll always be available on streaming. I'll always be able to watch this whenever I want. And now I can't. And now I have to pay $150 for one season of multiple shows. Do you want to watch The Spectacular Spider-Man? It's on Disney Plus now, but it won't be forever. So get that Blu-ray while you can. And you probably honestly can't. They stopped making it in 2017. So get it. If you can find it, get it. Go to Book Off or your local purveyor of Blu-rays and DVDs, largely secondhand. That's probably the best way to get it.
Moving on to the last article for this episode, we have a new way to watch movies at home, and among other things, the Apple Vision Pro, a semi-wireless AR headset that enables, nobody's quite sure yet what it does, but the tech is very impressive. You can watch TV on it, on a holographic display that you see through ski goggles that you strap to your face.
Oh, like those sunglasses that I keep getting Instagram ads for. They're like, hey, play your video game on this. They're only $799.
Oh, my God. Okay, so send me that link after the show. What was a neat surprise during Apple's announcement for this headset is Bob Iger striding out onto the stage.
2 mentions of Bob Iger in one podcast episode.
Yeah, this is a Disney-centric episode. He announced Disney's partnership with Apple to bring some quote-unquote immersive experiences to the headset. Some of the examples that they showed off were being able to watch like a basketball game from courtside from the comfort of your own home, and then having some environments that you would sit in as you're able to watch a movie. The idea behind this headset being you put it on and some external cameras on the outside of the headset render your surroundings to you. So it's as though you're able to see through the headset.
Oh, like your eyes do already?
Yeah. But for some of this, some money. I'm rubbing my fingers together right now, which you can't see because it's not a video
the low
podcast.
Price of $3,500.
Yes, $3,500 for the low price of that amount. 3 MacBook M2 Airs. You too can have ski goggles with an external battery powered by wire, which is something you definitely don't want in AR, VR headsets. And you can use it with no third-party apps either because they don't exist yet. It's brand new technology. If I sound kind of like sour on this, I'm not. It's mostly stemming from the fact that it's about double the price that I expected it to be.
Yeah.
I've been on the VR train for a long time.
Got me on that train.
Yeah, and I'm definitely excited about it, but it is also very much an early adopter device. Think way back to the first iPhone getting released. It didn't even have an app store because in 2007 or 2008, who would build apps for smartphones that there was no market for it whatsoever. And when there was a market, it was the beer drinking app. You remember?
Yeah.
You move your phone like this, and it looks like you're drinking a beer.
Very rudimentary accelerometer.
So it's, even though the price is objectively insane, it's not a device for anyone at all.
Yeah.
It's a device for, like 1 in 10,000 people.
Right. Mostly
for developers to create apps for the second and third versions of the device, which are going to be, $2,000 instead or something like that.
And we had a similar discussion when the Quest Pro was announced, where it was like, who was this device for exactly? But I think...
Yeah, which, speaking of, they've reduced the price to a now reasonable sounding $1,000.
Which, honestly, is kind of reasonable for like what it says it does. Like, this device in particular, I was like, so there's integration with other iOS products. And I was like, well, if what you're saying it does can like replace those products, then why do we also need those products, Apple? Like, if it can connect to your MacBook and do all the stuff your MacBook can do, why isn't there just like a one-way transfer process? Like when you buy a new phone and you're like, well, move my stuff over to here and this will just be the thing that I use now. It's because it's not as useful to have these goggles on all the time.
Yeah, it is definitely an odd device. I don't want to just sing its praises based on the tech alone, which, I mean, it's a VR headset, or, more accurately, it's an AR headset with no controllers at all. And you're able to navigate stuff in it by, number one, eye tracking, because there's cameras on the inside of the device that can figure out what you're looking at. So you select things based simply on where your eyes are pointing. And from what the tech demos have kind of like shown off, they say it's scarily accurate to the point of feeling like telepathy.
I don't believe that.
Me neither, but okay. Guy who was invited personally to go test out an Apple product by Apple itself is then going to sound really optimistic about. Yeah, of course they're going to sound like, they're going to sound positive about how they're using it. But like the second, magical, I hate myself for like using that phrase, but the second aspect of navigating stuff using this headset is, okay, you can navigate, you're moving the equivalent of a mouse cursor using your eyes now. And the way that you actually click instead of using the mouse, the physical mouse, is you just touch your thumb and forefinger together, because the cameras on the headset are also passively tracking your hands. So when you just make a specific hand movement, it's able to register that as a click.
But why not do active track? Like, so the Quest 2 like maybe a year and a half ago, introduced hand tracking, and it still doesn't work that well. Like, your lighting conditions have to be perfect for it to accurately track your hands. And I can't imagine that what Apple's got going on is so much better. Like, I'm willing to believe that the eye tracking is good, but the idea of using only eye tracking to navigate for the most part, it feels less than feasible right now.
Yeah, I mean, let's take it back to the whole point of this show, which is home media consumption. Let's just pretend that everything works. Technology never works, but we're just going to assume for the sake of the argument that...
Let's live in the idealist world of the people who are responsible for Apple's marketing.
Yes, the eye tracking and the hand tracking works perfectly. You're able to, you're in this virtual space of whatever your real living room looks like, and you can render a holographic TV. You're not looking at anything. You're looking at a video recording of your room, essentially. But because it's fully digital, the computer can do whatever it wants.
Yeah.
So it can bring into existence what looks like a holographic TV, which, again, since it can do anything, let's just make your TV 80 feet wide, and then totally darken your surroundings to like build into that immersive experience they're talking about. So let's say Disney's releasing Star Wars Episode 10, and the surroundings are now, Tatooine again. Pretty neat. Or the surroundings change based on what scene you're looking at. So is that worth $3,500? It's not a question. No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's obviously not worth $3,500.
I can definitely see the potential of that, like, given what Disney's been doing. Like, think about, like, I forget what the technology is called. They use it on The Mandalorian, and they've used it on some other things.
Oh, like the Unreal filming set?
Yeah. Where, like, adding that to, so, like, if you're watching it on a standard viewing thing, you see it as it's projected for that. But if you're watching it on whatever this device is called, I keep forgetting.
The Vision Pro.
The Vision Pro. Maybe because it's being projected as it's being filmed, maybe you get some of that as well. So you also get to see wherever the Mandalorian is, because the actors on set are in this room where it's being projected.
Yeah, and meanwhile, set designers are crying because they're like, I have to dress the set for a 360-degree field of view.
But I own a Quest 2. I enjoy watching movies in that I use, there's multiple apps that you can use to do things. Like, I primarily use big screen to watch stuff. And yeah, it's nice to have what is a simulated theater experience in my living room. It's a cool time. My Quest 2 was $250.
Oh yeah, you can $250. Well, I think that's
because I bought it was before I bought it maybe 2 years ago now.
Yeah. They changed the price a couple times. I just know the conversion rate now. Oh, well, actually, I was thinking of the Quest 3, which is coming out later this year, maybe early next year.
I saw 4 ads in a row watching the Nuggets Heat game last night.
You can buy 7 Quest 3s for the price of a single Vision Pro.
That's insane.
And there's 1 or 2 games on the Quest 3 that the Vision Pro doesn't have. But anyway, continue on about the Quest 2. I cut you off.
But I can already have an immersive film watching experience, even for things that aren't customized for that. Like the example I use when I'm talking to other people about how good that experience of watching media in VR is I watched Godzilla King of the Monsters in theaters, and that's an incredible experience because the scale of it really hits. I watched Godzilla vs. Kong at home on my 55-inch television. It's not a good movie, but you also don't have the scale of it to like sell you on the action. But when I watched it in VR, I can make that screen just like a 70-foot screen in a movie theater, and it's incredible. Again, still not a good movie, but at least you get the scale of it. And the Quest 2 is now even less than it was when I bought it. So it's like you can have that experience and not, because there's nothing. There aren't going to be third-party apps for it. It's going to be tech demos. When this thing comes out, all that's going to be on there is what Apple puts on there initially. It's going to be a bunch of things that you can just kind of play around with to see, like, it's all going to be first-party apps that are just, here's what this thing can do as of right now to make you feel like you made a justifiable purchase. And because it doesn't have any sort of like controller or anything, and it's not focused on like hand tracking, you can't have other experiences. Like the Quest has games and it has like museum exhibits. And
it is a specifically gaming focused headset. And my thinking is that long term, yes, you make good points about Apple's headset having kind of like nothing when it comes out. Long term, I think it's going to dominate everything AR, and Facebook's headset will be the industry leader when it comes to gaming. Just when it comes to like Apple's history, they've never really focused on gaming all that much. That's why I still have PCs, even though I hate the operating system. It's so frustrating, but I need it for my games. So I feel as though Apple, with their emphasis on smooth user experience, eventually stuff will get built for the headset, and several years down the line with like the version 3 or version 4 of their headset, it's going to be incredible and everybody's going to want one.
But that's what it'll take. It'll take close to a decade because the price point is already locking a lot of people out of this particular experience. And even the people who are willing to spend the money aren't going to have anything to do. So you're going to buy this. A bunch of people are going to jump on this first generation one and be like, just like everyone who owns an iPhone, tell themselves it's the best thing that's ever happened.
Yeah, they'll watch one movie on it and be like, wow, that was cool. It's kind of annoying, though. I got to put these ski goggles on. The battery life is only 2 hours. My face is kind of sweaty now. Why don't I just use the TV I already have to watch movies? Because, oh, yeah, I can't watch movies with anybody else if I'm wearing a screen on my face.
There's also, like, I was reading there's only one user profile. So it's like only you can use your...
Yeah, there's like an eyeball unlock feature.
Yeah,
which is very dystopian and also very cool.
One of the cool things about other VR headsets is you can have people over and just be like, "Hey, put this on and see if you like it." And
I always feel like I'm bullying people into like using it.
Yeah, you're kind of evangelical about it.
Get over here and strapping it onto their head. Let me tighten that up for you. Now you can't take it off.
You were a little evangelical about it, but two of us converted. So
more than two.
Yeah, I don't know. Like in 10 years, we'll see what the AR versus VR focus really gets us to. I can't imagine people like wearing these out and about, just being like, here's my augmented reality experience. But like, you're wearing a blindfold that if anything slightly changes, you suddenly can't see anymore. So it's not like you're going to go out into the world. I don't know. It feels like the same problem as the Quest Pro, but on a 2.5 times scale.
Yeah, I mean, we've already been going for close to an hour now, so I don't want to get on like too much of a tangent. But, if I'm going to sound like such a tech bro person now, but like if we're kind of seeing where the future is going right now, if you just walk around any street anywhere in America, any first world place, any third world place, whatever, everybody's looking at a smartphone.
Yeah.
Everywhere you go. It's kind of unsettling. It's very Black Mirror-ish if you think about it. So no, people are not going to go out and line up in front of. The worst part is people will go out and do this. Line up in front of Apple stores for the release of the Vision Pro.
There's absolutely going to be tens of thousands of people who are like, this is worth it to me. I'm definitely going to do it. And then we're going to hear a bunch about it for like 2 months and then nothing.
Yeah.
Until the second generation comes out that actually has accurate hand tracking.
Yeah, it'll have more of an ecosystem then. There will be some popularity for it, but it's not going to be anywhere close to the scale of the release of a new iPhone.
Right.
But 10 years from now.
Yeah, when Avatar 5 comes out.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's right. Will people be watching Avatar 5 in their home theaters networked together with other people who've bought their NFT movie tickets to be able to watch Avatar 5 in the metaverse?
Oh, that's going to happen.
Oh my God. This could become a 3-hour podcast now if you really let me go on that. But the tech is going to get more accessible. And it's going to get less kind of intrusive and less of a chore to wear in the sense of, those obnoxious ski goggle looking sunglasses and the big goggles that the things like this Apple headset are.
Yeah.
They'll converge to the point where you're effectively just putting on large sunglasses.
What you're saying is Google Glass is ahead of its time.
Way too far ahead of its time. But yes, I do see it getting there. But we're a very far, ways away from that.
We're both a long way away from it and not as long as we think we are.
Yes, there will definitely be an inflection point. You heard it here first. Spread the word, share the podcast. This is prophecy that you're hearing right now. But don't pay $3,500 for this headset. There will be nothing to do. You'll log in and then your first thought will think, well, I don't want to look at my photos on this headset. Yeah. I have a phone for that.
Right. You're going to go to your iCloud and you're going to try to pull movies and you realize that you don't have fast enough Wi-Fi to stream from your iCloud. And so you're going to have to plug into your MacBook anyway. But before this goes on for another hour, that's going to wrap us up for this month. You can find links to these articles in the show notes and at MediaPlayNews.com, and you can subscribe to the site's mailing list using the subscription link in the notes. You can email us directly at MediaPlayNewsPodcast@gmail.com to have your comment featured on the show, or find us on our Twitter account at PodcastMPN. If you like the show, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. We really appreciate it. I'm Charles Parkman.
I'm Charlie Sholey.
And we will see you next month.